Excellent. Welcome to Truth in Telecoms. Johnny is, without a shadow of a doubt, excited. I'll let Johnny explain why he's so excited.
Well, first of all, I got rumblings, I got the news, and finally, after 8 more years, it's kiss my Tyntec goodbye. Now, why am I saying that? Well, we just had Eddie DeCurtis on a show a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
He put a big deal together with Twilio, what have you. But I posted recently about David Copsy.
Yep.
Who is David Copsy? David Copsy, secret agent, man. He has been running Tyntec for years, right? So you have Nicola Wolfriend, who's the CEO, who I took from customer service or human resources girl. She got equity in the company. She became CEO. Obviously, when Eddie introduced me to him, then you have Thorsten, who founded the company. They brought me in. He bought out his last co-founder and his last investors.
Yeah.
So then you have David Copsy, who, when I knew David Copsy was really, really good, is when we were trying to sell the company to GMS.
Gotcha.
And Virginie Debris, who's like a legend in the industry, called me up complaining. This guy thinks he knows everything, blah, 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 blah. And the minute she started complaining about him, I knew, I'm like, this guy's the real deal. Because if you piss off Virginie, you know what I mean? And she's still very complimentary of him.
Yeah.
So, look, you have a huge situation here. You've got David Copsy in Twilio. The rumblings inside Twilio is he's game-changing, right? Because now Twilio has somebody who understands international. So, in my post I put out this morning, which is flying, Twilio and Jeff Lawson's whole viewpoint was to monopolize the USA.
Yeah.
That's when he was with Doug Gardner, litigation, when they were trying to shut him off. He buys ZipWhip for $850 million, shuts it down.
Yeah.
He buys Cineverse for no apparent reason other than trying to pump A to P through P to P.
Yeah.
Cineverse now lost its peering agreement with T-Mobile. It's now InfoBip, which it really doesn't matter. Cinch has its peering agreement with Verizon, but with everything converging over to RCS, for at least for P to P. RBM is a little bit differently.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter that much. So Twilio, and then Twilio obviously paying 80%, paying upfront cash to the campaign registry enabled them to control more than 80% of all the campaigns in the U.S., both sole proprietorship and company. So they own the U.S. No matter what anybody tells you, they own it. You got bits and pieces here and there. And as you know, I'm a huge fan of InfoBip, and I've been screaming about them to go on IPO because I think their narrative and their story is amazing. 3,700 employees, tremendous leadership, tremendous narrative. But here you go. If Twilio buys Tyntec, it's game over for all of them. Cinch, InfoBip, you name a company, right? They're going to have a big problem. And the timing is perfect because now you've got Kazima in charge at Twilio, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Jeff Lawson got thrown out by Moez Kazam. Make sure you post that whole thing. Actually, an analyst that he hired. So secondary hedge funds tossed him out. They ran the stock up from $50 to $150, billions and billions of dollars. These guys made hundreds of millions of dollars. Right? Stories are coming out. He's doing interviews. Oh, is the new CEO the CFO? And he's done a tremendous job. But he's made some really good moves here by bringing in David Copsy.
Yeah.
But how did Tyntec let David Copsy go?
Yes.
When we were trying to sell Tyntec, we went through many processes, and I'll get down to the last one with GMS. Even when Scipio wanted to remove Thorsten and was working with me to try to remove him, it was all about David Copsy can run the company. Right?
Gotcha.
When they got rid of Marco LaFrenz, he's a brilliant guy, but he's not David Copsy. David Copsy understands the whole playing field. He understands everything out there. But he was trained by Hannibal Thorsten himself.
Gotcha.
Right? So Thorsten Trapp has trained this guy. And he's also, worked with Nicola, the CEO, very closely. So it didn't make any sense to me. Except other than, all right, what's going on here? So Copsy now goes into Twilio. He's crushing it. Everybody loves him. Rock star.
Okay.
He's going to increase the market. Well, he also knows how difficult it is to recreate all the connectivity that Tyntec has and the relationships. You can't buy them. Twilio never really
Takes
pay
time.
attention to that.
Yeah.
So now, all these guys that are crushing it everywhere else except the U.S., if this deal happens, and it won't even be for a tremendous amount of money, and I'll get into the deal we have with GMS, it's basically game over. With the amount of money, if you gave Thorsten Trapp $100 million to go play internationally, he'd eat them alive. And that's exactly what Copsy is showing these people. Like, hey, what have you been doing here? When I first took over, when I first did a deal with Tyntec, I went to Twilio, went to San Francisco, had my hula hula shirt on, and Thorsten didn't want to do a deal with them. Turned down a deal that would have been worth probably about $800 million, which is nowhere near what the price is going to be now.
No.
Because he wanted to compete. And that's when he was suing Cineverse and going through it. He thought he was going to be the hub and the whole 9 yards. Now you circle forward. Where is Twilio going, right?
Yeah.
We got Moez and them. They left,
They're
right?
done. They made the money.
You're at $83 a share, and they were kicking it around 90 before the tariff war started, or whatever that may be. But they have a solid company. They still got $2.3 billion in the bank.
Yep.
They got slight growth. They're kicking in some cash. Kazim is doing a phenomenal job because he's an amazing CFO. He brings in Thorsten and Tyntec. It's just game changing. Somebody said to me, "How is it going to get to $300 a share?" Well, how did Newsmax go to $30 billion market cap with $150 million in revenue? How did Twilio get to $80 billion before? The Twilio's got 9 lives, and they proved it. Right?
True. Yeah.
They proved it. They totally proved it. And now you got everything going conversational. Like I literally think that if Infobit did an IPO or does an IPO soon, they're going to crush it. They got a great story, great narrative. Wall Street's going to eat them alive. You got the Orange, you got the Pippers, Infobit. It's just a great story, good revenue. But Twilio now comes into the game with Tyntec. It's just game changing. And look, you could put the deal I had in place with GMS. So the last deal, so I hired bankers, brought them in with Scipio Partners. Roland, I still love you over there at Scipio. We spent this is the first deal we had Soprano Design, didn't work out. Roland, Scipio messed that up. Yeah. Then we went into a public company in Cinch. They chose the public company. The public company got bought afterwards. Then we started dancing around some wannabe guys that have no money. And then we got to GMS. We spent 14 months with GMS, due diligence, the whole 9 yards. And it was a stock deal, which you can put out. So you'll see the agreements. I made one deal with Scipio and another deal with Thorsten and Nicola in the company. That's what got Roland Dennert and Scipio thrown off the board.
Oh, okay.
So that's how Thorsten was able to toss them. So on a Friday, GMS said, "We're doing this deal." Thorsten said, "Yes, we're doing this deal." On a Monday, he changed his mind, threw Roland off the board, through the last chairman we had, Tom and Polk off the board, and done. And then you'll see a letter that I get there from Hans Dieter Cook, which is he's I guess the big guy.
Yeah, the CEO.
Even though really Roland Dunn is the managing partner, the smartest guy over there. Tell me now I got to deal with Thorsten. And then we get into the whole thing where they try to get me locked up in German. Like Thorsten would rather cut his fingers off to give me a quarter. Yeah. At the end of the day. But as you can see, I was ending up with, probably 14 million on that deal, on the whole deal. And I was even willing to waive my cash. So we were willing to do a stock deal with GMS because they were a great company. But that was right in the beginning of the war, right when
yes.
They had a lot of employees over there. They had since moved a lot off. GMS is still a great company.
Yes.
But so now if there's a stock deal, I mean, cash or stock, it doesn't really matter. I'd love to take stock at $83 a share because I think this thing legitimately can run to 200 and above. Twilio shareholders deserve a smart acquisition to not overpay for something that actually brings it value. ZipWhip, no value, done, shut off. Other than 800 registry for a while, which has now been given out, right?
Yeah.
Cineverse, complete dog. The guys at Twilio don't even know they own Cineverse. Cineverse did a post the other day promoting WhatsApp. Can you imagine the company that calls itself the most connected company in the world is promoting WhatsApp?
No.
It's dead in the water. I mean, that was just a donation to the Carlyle Group. Say, here's $750 million, and we'll take a minority stake. And that's the deal inevitably that got him fired. But this is huge. I mean, so look, I've been out there pumping Infobip. I'd love to see Twilio-Tintech get a deal done with Infobip, but it won't happen because Thorsten can't stand them for whatever reasons. Can't stand. That's why I love the Bippers so much. I mean, I'm a Bipper. I'm a fan of Roberto anyhow, and his brother, and this guy Ivan they brought on. This guy's former McKinsey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he spent 12 years at McKinsey. He left McKinsey as a partner to join Infobip.
Yeah.
He's no joke. And they know what they're doing. So I still believe in the Infobip.
Yeah.
Since has no cash.
Yeah.
They're trading at $1.80 a share, US dollars.
Penny stock.
You know, the CEO is out there promoting DEI in the face of the new FCC chair. That's not going to be so good. Because you saw what happened to David Copsy but even though he's fighting back and he's the toughest guy in the industry, full stop. There's nobody tougher than David. We still don't know what happened over there.
Good time.
We still haven't heard
Gitmo,
anything.
he's still in Gitmo.
We don't know. I would bet he busts out of there. But
yeah,
look, this is really exciting. So Eddie was on the show and he made a big deal with Twilio.
Yes.
So they're smarting up. They're bringing in smart people. David Copsy's there. Eddie was there. So if you can bring that smart international culture into Twilio, it just changes the game because how much more can they grow in the U.S., right? Like their growth is going this way because that's just where it is. Will RCS have more conversions? Yes, but that's also less.
Yeah, I mean,
less transactions.
Exactly.
And they're getting paid on transactions.
Yeah.
Robert Viz, he'll be humping his robots for another couple of years. You know, he already took $1 billion from his investors.
No. I mean, that's execution. But, you know.
But he's got a long way to go at the end of the day. So look, Twilio investors, this is a home run deal for you guys. You know, obviously, of course, I want it because, you know, and Scipio Partners definitely wants it. It depends if Hannibal Thorsten wants it. If Hannibal Thorsten wants it and they let him in the door, every other company better run because he's full of piss and vinegar. And he didn't even want to meet with Jeff Lawson because he thought he was an idiot. That's how arrogant he is. And look, as much as I dislike the guy, he's flat out brilliant on connectivity. And he's run Tyntec with no money. Scipio Partners is a broken down private equity group. They don't have a lot of money. They raised $200 million on their fund on My Irish Wireless. So they invest like $3 to $5 million, but they're into Tyntec for $25 million plus.
Mm-hmm.
And they got to get their money out. And look, I love Roland Dennert. What Scipio Partners has done in the marketplace as a secondary investor is pretty staggering. They had a couple of exits for $78 million. So, you know, Roland Dennert is smart as hell, you know, but he got caught. And how did he get caught? So they got caught making a separate deal with me because they wanted to get out of there so bad. Thorsten caught him, tossed him off the board. Gotcha. So it's Thorsten's king.
Yeah.
How does Thorsten let his baby David Copsy go? I don't know. Right? It doesn't make any sense to me. And David Copsy going in and telling Twilio, look at all these great things. Okay, how are we going to do them? Well, if you plug in Tyntec, bang, your cost comes down 20% across the board. Instead of prepaying other companies.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, I think Twilio prepaid over $100 million on prepayments to other firewall gateway deals. They'd have Tyntec there. So you're talking, this would be game-changing for Twilio shareholders. And with a CEO like Kuzima, who needs to come up with a bigger growth story. Yes, you got AI. Yes, you got all these things. But nobody really knows. But if you just get down to the basics, with the Twilio-Tintech 20-year anniversary last year. Yeah. This guy's been around for a long time. You know, so look, it's Thorsten's game. If this deal happens, you know.
I mean, it's fair to say that Twilio has underperformed on the international side of its business, but to an extent,
they haven't focused on it. You know, they bought that company, whatever it was, BeepSend. When they couldn't buy Tyntec, they bought BeepSend.
Gotcha.
Doug Gardner was there. It was a disaster.
Okay.
Right. But dealing internationally is very complex. You got different regulations in every place. You got GDPR. You've got all different types all over the place. Tyntec's got some other incredible assets too, with number lookup and stuff like that. So the writing's on the wall. Mm-hmm. So you've heard some people yourself.
Oh yeah. I mean, this week has been, you know, Alan, do you know about the Twilio-Tintech deal? And I'm like, are you sure this isn't just Johnny spreading rumors? So, but the key is
Johnny's credit. Nobody talks to me at Tyntec or Scipio. I'm on the pay me no mind list.
Yeah.
They're waiting for me to go to Germany to throw me in some kind of a prison for a LinkedIn post.
But the thing that got me sort of surprised was they were saying, well, it's end of April into May. That's when you're going to see it. It's going to happen. So it was like how convinced people were, and I was like, but then when you were like, it's happening, like, okay, this is your dream come true. Are you sure somebody isn't basically pulling one on you? So that's in the LinkedIn post that
Look,
immediately.
at the end of the day, it's just common sense. It's a no-brainer deal for Twilio. They
That's what you said.
they don't even
Yeah.
have to report it to the market. That's how much of a small deal it would be
Right.
for them to be able to. I mean, it's a big deal optically,
Yeah.
and I'm betting you got a smart guy like Cosima, who's a CFO. You got a smart guy like David Copsy, and then you got Hannibal Thorsten. You put those three together, it's game over.
Yeah.
It's game because Cosima will understand how Thorsten can save money and then also grow and expand. So,
Yeah.
look, the rest of the industry, I would put our money together and try to find a way to put your money together to make sure Twilio doesn't buy Tyntec.
That's true.
Infobip should be buying Tyntec.
Yeah.
Since I mean, they tried to buy it because they wanted the platform, but
Yeah.
I don't know where they're going. They have like all these different divisions. I mean, IntelliQuint's a great asset. But who else is there? Vox Solutions, I told him, he's got a boatload of money somewhere, but I don't know if Thorsten's going to listen to him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You've got all these other players out there. Tata just got burnt for $300 million.
Yeah.
They're not. They should have bought Tyntec. Now they got a complete disaster on their hand. Tata, you still can't sell the campaign registries. Not going to be sold. Like we told you, we've knocked it all out. Complete dog. And all the guys that ran Calera were all ex-Tyntec guys. So, like Eddie said in his podcast, ex-Tyntec's everywhere.
Yeah.
Scott Warner's best friends with David Copsy. Great friends. And David Copsy is just, like I said, the guy you can't even find anything on him. He's just in the shadows. So
exactly, yeah.
I mean, look.
So what do you think?
Twilio shareholders, I'm
revenue?
gonna bang this out. I'm gonna do press releases. I'm gonna go into the guys. I'm gonna go into the show. I'm gonna talk to your shareholders. You guys got bullied by a couple of small hedge funds. And all I'm saying is, and you should thank me, Cosima, because if Jeff didn't get fired, you wouldn't have got your $50 million payroll, and you wouldn't have went to 150. But you can easily get back to 150 and more, because look how much business there is internationally.
Well, exactly. What do you think the revenue upside is for Twilio?
I think the revenue upside on messaging is at least a couple of $100 million, but it's more than that at the end of the day. What's the revenue of Cinch, right? Couple billion. What's the revenue of Infobip? Couple billion, right? What's the revenue? What's the revenue of GMS? $500 million. What's the revenue of Surprise Design? X. But now you've got the smartest guy who never had a dollar. Thorsten and Nicola just wanted to get control of the company when they made a deal with me. They were the largest shareholders. They spent $9 million suing Cineverse, took a beating on that. But Scipio Partners ain't the kind of group that can invest and do things. But so if you look all the acquisitions that Cinch made, they spent a couple of $1 billion, had a payback SoftBank. Where are they going? Bandwidth made a big acquisition there that they made over there in Europe. They got 90 million in the bank. Their market cap is 300 million. Everybody's toast. You're not getting another chance. But Twilio, for some reason, Twilio's got 100 lives. And it's up to them to make the right deal. They're not going to go spend $1 billion on a stupid company.
No.
But you could spend not a lot of money. And they've already stopped. They're either going to take David Copsy and they're going to figure it out themselves and crush it internationally.
Yeah.
But if they acquire Tyntec and if Thorsten,
then all those deals wrap in.
If Thorsten agrees, and they give him some green M&Ms for his dressing room.
Stock. They give him stock. They'll most probably go 3x within like 18 months.
He don't care about the money. Thorsten don't care. I told you. He'd be happy. He'd be happy being buried in Tyntec with a shrine of himself. Like in 100 years, he'll be King Tut Thorsten, and he'll have all his patents plastered. But the guy's, he's brilliant. He's a lunatic, but that's just personal between me and him because they're just very ungrateful because both of you guys were fired on the street until I saved you. And Eddie knows that, through Eddie, of course.
Yeah.
So this is really exciting for me. And this is just the beginning. So look, I want to put it out there. Twilio, my last deal with GMS is there. If you want to buy Cinch, 1.7 billion right now, you're buying. For what? You're going to get all these different companies? Not worth it. You got 2.3 billion in the bank. You could go to the market and get more money, but then the hedge fund guys will make you start doing buybacks, right? Exactly. Are you going to buy Infobit? Way too expensive. Way too expensive to buy Infobit, but that would be explosive.
Yeah.
You put those two together, but that'd be explosive. And another thing, it'd cost you a couple $2 billion.
Yeah.
You pick up Tyntec, what are we, 100 million in revenue with all the connectivity? We can scale 100 people. It's a joke, a complete joke. And if you give Thorsten Trapp the resources, Cosima, Twilio shareholders, he will crush it. And this is coming from a guy who can't stand him. So I understand, but I'm not going to say he doesn't know. He needs capital to play in his game, and he will eat them alive. So warning to the rest of you guys, figure out a way, put your money together, and try to stop the deal. But Twilio doesn't do this deal. Yeah, they'll still do better with David Copsy because it's very smart.
Exactly.
But it's very complicated. I've talked to a lot of the guys from Twilio a year ago. Man, this is complicated. International, different countries, different rules, different regulations, legalities. And Twilio doesn't need that. Twilio just needs to run their business. They got plenty of cash. It doesn't really matter what Twilio stock price is at the end of the day because they got 2.3 billion. They're bringing in cash flow, right? Yep. The industry's changing. You're charging more for RCS. They're just starting to play with RCS now, Twilio. They're loving it. And guys, I know so many people over there. We have 19,000 subscribers. We hear everything from everybody. We got ex-Twilians calling us. We got to smack people to shut it up. So this is big news.
Yeah.
Now, what are your thoughts?
I'm still... There is likely discussion happening because we've had so many people saying, hey, what about this deal? You know, people are assuming it's already happened. As far as I'm aware, it hasn't. And
I think it happened the minute David Copsy walked in there. I think David Copsy got in there, taught everybody everything he knows. And he said, well, wait a minute. Instead of doing this all ourselves, why don't we just buy Tyntec? I ran it anyhow.
Well, exactly.
I'll just run Tyntec. If David Copsy's running international and he's heading up international for Twilio, and he just plugs in Twilio, plugs in Tyntec, drops the cost just on the prepayments they're making to other people, it pays for itself.
True.
So it's not. True. It won't be a big press release deal, but it'll be a big deal. And a year or two from now, you will see Twilio eating people alive on talent and knowledge. That's my pitch to the shareholders. That's my pitch to you. Think about it. You know, we'll do this again because every day now it's, please, kiss my Tyntec goodbye. Please. I'll take Twilio shares. You'll see in my note, I was willing to take half my cash, less cash from GMS because I liked them. They're a good company. They're profitable. They're still doing good. But they got too much revenue. They cost too much for a Twilio to buy them. And they don't have that. It's a different game that they're playing than what Tyntec's playing.
Exactly.
But Tyntec's ready to scale. And they're ready to scale. They're ready to scale Twilio. And I know if this kid's is smart, and look, Roland Dennert, I never had any interaction with David Copsy. I'm not allowed to talk to anybody. I was only allowed to talk to Roland, who's my buddy, and then you'll see all that stuff coming out at Scipio. And Nicola, me, had a love affair for many years. I love her, but then she got blocked from talking to me by Hannibal. So look, it is what it is. You know, patience, there's a God somewhere. And it's not about me saying it or you saying it. It just makes sense. Just makes sense.
Well, with David Copsy, because then they've got an asset that can help them manage basically the rationalization that's going to.
Yeah, and he turned around, no question, and said, wait a minute, I just ran Tyntec. You guys don't have this, you don't have that.
Exactly.
Let's just buy Tyntec.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No.
You know what I mean? Well, how did he even leave Tyntec? I can't get a straight answer. I asked Eddie, I don't know. He didn't leave on bad terms. He didn't leave on bad terms. Why would he leave? How would they let him leave?
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean? So the whole thing is
secret agent man.
I think a secret agent man. Maybe Thorsten wants to go make Twilio great again. He would love to stick it to everybody else. He's got nothing against Twilio. Twilio has paid for a lot of upfront payments and running
Oh yeah,
traffic that we've reported for them.
yeah,
So there's obviously a respect. And Jeff's not there because Thorsten had no respect for
yeah.
Jeff Lawson. Why? I don't know. The guy only made billions of dollars.
Well,
He's
yeah.
fixing cars now. I mean, you can't argue with
Hey,
that. But
he's enjoying life.
if you let Tyntec go, Twilio will consolidate the rest of the world and drive people just enough down in revenue because they're running out of money.
Yes.
They're all running out of money,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
And this
Who'll
is
be left
interesting
standing?
timing.
You'll have, huh?
For Infobip's IPO, that this could happen quite quickly, and
It's not going to happen, but the market's just fluctuated. Nobody's going to go public at this point. I mean, Newsmax was set up to go public. They didn't see coming what happened. So Infobip, when they decide to go public, great. But if you have Twilio now eating them alive,
that's tough.
because Twilio's got the cash.
Yeah. Yep.
They got the cash.
Yeah,
they got the brand. They got the name. And then you throw in Tyntec.
Well,
Good
you've been
luck.
saying that from the start. In terms
Hey,
of
listen, even Robert Fizz says what kind of a great asset Tyntec has. He still uses them.
Yes.
He built his
no,
own. He got his ego. But at the end of the day, why did Cinch want to buy him? Why?
Yeah.
Cinch wanted to buy him when they were a few $1 billion market cap.
Exactly.
Right? They wanted to buy him for their platform and their network.
That's right. And just that.
So Thorsten, 99% reliability. He keeps getting the Rocco Awards too. He's just humming along. I mean, he don't care.
Yeah.
He just doesn't care. Maybe he woke up, he's getting tired. Maybe he wants to stop working so much and go on a diet and start running around or chasing his drones or whatever he does. I don't know. But David Copsy can plug in Tyntec.
Yeah.
And they love him at Twilio.